What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 326. It is a fine Super Bowl Sunday here in the United States, anyway. And we are here to talk about some amazing games because the month of February obviously is getting into full gear now. And we've got a lot of things to talk about. So before we get to our topics, of course, we have the lawman who, before we started, was having some mic issues. So if he appears to go in and out, up and down, it's not Travis doing it, I promise. It's just a mic issue on his end. How we doing, lawman?
I'm good. I do apologize. I'm sure the levels are going to change as I say this sentence, but I am trying to get my microphone to stop auto-adjusting its volume. Folks,
Shockingly, that sounded normal.
If it auto-adjusts, I apologize. I've hit all the buttons I can think to hit. StreamYard is changing my volumes regardless of whether I tell it to or not. So please stick with me. It seems to have held right now. I tried one last thing before we started the show. We'll see how we do.
Yeah, we'll hang in there. So no, actually, that's the first time since we started talking before the show it hasn't adjusted. So we may be clear, hopefully.
Cross your fingers.
But, so audio listeners, apologies in advance if that happens. But we also have the tie guy. He's here with a overrated tie today, I heard. It's the rumor that's being spread.
McClunky. My tie is not overrated. It's cool. It's got little Triforces on it. Triforces are cool. You are not cool. That's my message to the children.
There's no argument on any of that, but here we are. Cool. So gonna be a good show. We've got some things to talk about, boys. We've got Monster Hunter Wilds beta. The second beta is now live, getting ready for what's no doubt going to be one of the biggest games of the year. We finally have my most anticipated game of the year now out with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. We've got some other things to talk about, including commentary from lovely executives. EA's commentary on Dragon Age. We've got Strauss Zelnick's commentary on both Civ 7, I believe, and Grand Theft Auto 6. We've got an update on Battlefield, which I'm pumped about, and a few other things, of course. But
now, be honest with me, Ains. Did you sit in that line? Did you try to get into that Battlefield group testing thing?
Let me explain how smart I am to you, Hogue. So I logged in. There was a 26,000 person queue nearly immediately to get into it. Got in queue, waited. I was working on some stuff for SG, and then I shut down my computer.
Hey, that's all right.
I am.
That means that it wasn't that important to you. That's great. That's a good technique.
Yeah. So, and now I actually tried this morning, believe it or not, and the link was failing. So I don't know if they've cut it off now. I don't really know. We'll figure it out. No big deal.
The most impressive part of that story is that you shut down your computer.
Yeah.
Yes. I try to convince the people in my household to shut down their computer. They are also a little bit reluctant to do so. I don't know when this started, just leaving your computer on all the time. I don't like it.
It's in the culture, dude. I have people, or I just see like their tabs, and I'm like, dude, how is your computer? They're like, yeah, my computer always has problems. I'm like, hey, when's the last time you turned it off? Like 4 years ago? Well, there you go, dude. You gotta turn that off. And they won't
weird, man. I only keep tabs I'm actively using open. Like I like it clean. Everything.
I've got inbox zero energy. My wife's got hundreds of thousands of unread emails and text messages, and
after my hospital trip and my email inbox saying 10,000 plus, I have never gotten it below that level.
Really?
I can maintain it at its current level, but whatever the heck happened when I was in the hospital, I have not gone through those 10,000 emails.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm at 13,000 in our SG inbox. It's too much.
If there are 10,000 emails that you're never going to read, why wouldn't you just bulk delete them to get back to zero?
That feels bad, man.
It does. It feels like I'm going to get rid of something I need.
You're never going to read them. It's like a chunk of your life you're going to.
No, I hear you psychologically. I hear you logically, Travis. I hear you completely. It feels bad, man. Not going to do that.
Yeah, sometimes my coworkers will share like their screen, and I see Google Chrome's got that red update button, and like I could tell their computer software hasn't been updated in like 2 years, and I'm like, bro, how are you? What is your life? It's because they don't want their tabs to close. They're afraid if they restart the computer, their tabs will close. I'm like, bro, that is not what tabs are for. That is like not what you're supposed to use them for.
I think the trickiest thing for me with operating a computer in 2025 is to remember that restart is when your computer really gets healthy, not shut down. So, like, remembering to restart at least once a week is a big deal for me.
Also a different function.
Travis, you're
Yeah,
gone
Travis,
now.
your mic just went off.
Really?
Oh,
Could this
you're
be
back.
a StreamYard issue?
You are back for right now.
Very
It's
cool.
a StreamYard issue that first tried to attack me and has now moved on to Travis.
I mean, it chose the correct target. Bring it on, StreamYard. I've lived through Elgato. You can't hurt me.
Elgato acquire StreamYard. Like, oh no.
You can't hurt me.
Oh man. Before we get into it, of course, we got a member comment here from Mr. Rick Davis, a regular. Good morning, Rick.
Rick Davis has been a member for 20 months. He writes, "Morning. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, easy 2025 game of the year. What a game. I can't stop playing it. It also led to me learning about the historical period during which it is set."
Yeah, it also led the Outrage mob to do that. It's been a fun weekend on social media.
What are they outraged about? That history is not.
They are
particularly
outraged
PC?
about the historical codex suggesting that, in particular, the character of Hans is underage during the events of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
A historically accurate statement.
Certainly no one was ever underage back in the 15th century doing bad things.
The years in the codex even have a question mark around when he's born, but the one thing that I've wound up talking about on social media is the fact that the codex in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is essentially a historical appendix. It's designed to give you context for where these things come from and what they're based on. The Hans in the game is clearly not 15 years old. Like, that's just not how he's built. That's not how he's acted. That's not his voice actor. That's not how he looks in the game. They are not trying to make him a child during the events of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And so I wind up getting in this discussion on social media, which is always a mistake. Don't engage with the people that are just trying to get you angry.
I'm going to go out
whatever.
on a limb here, Hogue, and say this was on X.
Of course it was on X. It's the only social media platform that I still use. But I hate everybody coming after games, coming after media for various gotchas, various things that we can complain about so that we can get people to watch our YouTube channel or what have you. And so I will continue to speak out against that, just like I spoke out against it when it happened to Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 from the opposite direction, right? Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 was attacked for not having enough diversity, for being a secret Christian nationalist game, all these various things that in various places on the internet you get in trouble for even talking about it, much like Hogwarts Legacy. It was that same kind of vibe for Kingdom Come 1. And now 2, it's like, oh, well, you're having all these young kids do these bad things, and I'm just over it. I'm over all the policing. I'm over Jack Thompson. I'm over Night Trap hearings. I'm over it from whatever direction it comes from.
And I will be a counterbalance by being for all of this made-up controversy.
Whatever Rick's for or against, Travis is the opposite.
I will find new things to be angry about. I will promote hate and divisiveness, and that's my role in all of this.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we do here. Yeah.
Ains, how about you? What's your stance on this?
You know, I'm like Switzerland, man. I walk in the middle. I just let it all go. Yeah,
you have
you guys enjoy
absolutely.
yourself.
I'm sure that
You
saying
stand
you're
for
like
nothing.
Switzerland is going to offend somebody if they want to be offended.
Yeah, it's true.
Switzerland? Where those people ran from the
dare you.
Nazis in that mountain movie?
Oh man, Rick. Yes, we're going to talk about KCD 2, of course.
Yeah.
So we will get to it. Thank you, my
I have
friend.
a lot of thoughts.
And Googleman.
Googleman81 offers a €10 sacrifice and writes, "Anyone watching Severance? There's
Yes.
this reference to, quote, the tallest waterfall on the planet, unquote, that I think I'll internally chuckle at until my 70s.
Yeah, so in Severance, many of the characters don't have a full knowledge of the outside world for reasons that you can get into if you want to watch the show. But in this particular episode this week, they do point to a waterfall that's like a kind of standard waterfall in a park near you and say it's the tallest waterfall on the planet. So yes, I am watching Severance, Googleman. It is enjoyable. It keeps my interest. I think it's maybe a little bit oversold right now on social media, but I like Apple shows in general. I think they do a good job with their content.
Agreed. We started Severance. I'm way behind. I think we've done like 3 episodes of season 1. So like very, very behind on it.
It's not a bad show. And this week in particular, I'm glad you brought it up on this show, Googleman, because this week in particular has a very large Resident Evil vibe. They do a lot of lore on the corporation where these people work at, and it's got a lot of Umbrella Corporation in it. Like if you think of Code Veronica, if you think of weird corporate lore that doesn't really fit your understanding of how a corporation operates, it's all in Severance this week. So I really did enjoy that Resident Evil vibe there, but it was clear to me that somebody was a fan of like Capcom going nuts about describing how the Umbrella Corporation works, how the family that made it works, that kind of thing. Really mostly Code Veronica.
Weird Corporate Lore was the alternate name for your YouTube channel, Hogue.
Weird Corporate Lore might still be a show on my channel. Who knows?
By the way, I would love if Severance went like 6 seasons and then slowly just turned into it being an undercover Resident Evil show.
I'm telling you, when you get to this week's episode, Ains, whenever that is, 2 years from now, you will see what I'm saying, that like this is clearly like an Umbrella Corporation homage.
It's awesome. Gogoman, thank you as always. And Don Lionheart coming in with, Don, is this self-promotion? I don't know if I can allow this.
Don Lionheart offers a $5 super chat and writes, "Good morning, all. Almost finished with Avowed. Can't wait to share my thoughts in my review. Check it out on Season Gaming Thursday, February 13th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the year of our Lord."
You know, after you say year of our Lord, you usually say the year number, Travis.
I already said the year earlier.
Okay.
The time is also
you got to
in the year
appreciate
of our Lord.
Ains's grift here, though, right? We see a lot of people on
I did
social
not
media
ask for this.
get complaining about grifters, and Ains runs a website, has somebody making reviews for him, gets paid to have his own marketing said on his own show.
And he doesn't pay them. They pay him to promote their
What a great
review.
gig, Ains.
It's
It
pretty
is.
crazy.
It is.
I mean, you make fun of him, but we're also doing this as unpaid labor.
You are.
So who's the real fool?
I was told that if this ever becomes profitable or popular in any way, that I would be considered for possible compensation for my years of effort.
Okay,
That is still true.
that if was.
That is still true.
I think that if was always destined for the no.
No, it's still true.
The fact of the matter is I like these conversations with you guys. I don't know why sometimes. Sometimes I wake up on Sunday and go, oh my God, am I going to have to chat with Travis this morning? But I like it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes. Don, thank you. This is Don's first kind of big pre-embargo review, so he's excited,
Nice.
as you may
That is
tell.
awesome.
So, yes. So anyway, Avowed reviews are coming this week. As Don just said, we can't obviously talk about it today, as well as I'm previewing South of Midnight, which again, I can't talk about until Tuesday. So a lot of things coming out this week that'll be on the site, or all sites and all the creators you follow. And then obviously we'll talk about those next week. So looking forward to that.
Speaking of which, I'm going to be useless this show, which I'm very excited about because I have not played Kingdom Come Deliverance. And both of the games that I spent my entire week playing are huge AAA games that are not out yet and that I cannot talk about at all. So that is very cool for everyone watching the show. I will see you next week. Guardians out.
I don't know about
Nice.
everybody else, but I like to think about reviewers playing the games early and how enjoyable it is for them to get that experience early. So we can just be jealous of whatever it is you've gotten to play, Travis.
Okay, that's a very romanticized version of it.
I know it.
Well,
Love
we know one is Avowed, but I don't even know if you can say what the other is.
I believe I cannot say. It's probably for the best that I don't.
That's fine. I will not try to drag it out of you.
But
Yeah.
I can't say that I am reviewing Avowed and that my review is basically done. So that'll be live on Thursday as well. If you want to check out that, and also the review of Don Lionheart, noted super chatter of the season.
He is
game.
not reviewing himself, you know.
I mean, I think if
He's not?
IGN reviews another reviewer on a competing outlet, I think that might be an issue. I'm not sure if we can
as long as it
qualify
links back to us, I'm fine with it.
If we could. This is his first review. Let's dissect it.
Before we get into the games, we've also got Tide's picks, of course, which this week, let's see. I didn't even look at these. I quickly saved them and threw them up here. So here's what we got.
That's actually
Is
how I
this
look when
us?
I play games.
You hold the controller upside down?
I hold it upside down and I
very
look
cool.
scared.
Yeah.
I like that there's a D-pad on both sides.
That's really cool. He's got
That's
no
good.
sticks. His hands are just on
I figure the AI just knows that I had a little issue with my left hand and is just giving me extra buttons.
Yeah. Am I playing on a PlayStation controller? Yeah, I think that is a PlayStation controller.
We're playing on
Very
some
cool.
interesting controllers, that's for sure.
Is this supposed to be us rage playing or playing games and being scared? I'm not.
No,
I
Ains
think
is
it looks
intense.
more-
Travis
Yeah, I think it
is
looks
terrified.
more classic. You just look terrified. I don't know what you're playing.
That's how I always look when I play video games. You guys haven't seen me. Also, what is up with AI and Hogue? Why does he look like a hunk always? It's crazy.
I am just
unbelievable.
the standard bearer for beauty. I don't know what to tell you.
God, dude, I'm starting to think this AI is very anti-Semitic. It's got problems it's working through. That's all I have to say.
By the way, Alex says you look like the famous Jim Ryan picture there, Travis, where he's like pretending to hold the controller and play.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a meme for sure.
Yeah, I just
I'll
look
say,
like
you know,
Professor X.
This looks more like me than normal. I mean, my hair's a little long.
You're not ginger.
I'm not ginger. That's cool. They got my horrifying broken nose right. Yeah, that's good. I'll take it.
I said I look like Professor X. Alex said I look like Lex Luthor. So I don't know what that.
You always look like Professor X because of the earmuff out of
You do look like the new Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
I don't know the new one.
It's Holt, right? Nicholas Holt.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not the superhero guy. I've seen the trailer, but I couldn't tell you.
Also, where are your thumbs, Ains, on that controller?
Oh, I'm hanging out. You know,
Your thumbs are like
I'm using triggers only.
It's like you're trying to not touch any
They
of the
caught me using my aimbot.
your fingers are in the most crazy place for the fingers to be.
He's just got the gyros on.
Your
He's
thumbs
gyro
should-
aiming.
Your thumbs should not be there. Like you
No, they
have
shouldn't.
absolutely no. That's very funny.
Well, look, Hogues are just as bad. I don't even.
Yeah, they
I have
are.
no
They're on
idea
the other
what's going on
side.
with Hogues.
Hogues are bad, but you can imagine that there's sticks down there. Yours, like they put them in a place where there's nothing. Like there's just no buttons there. It's very funny.
He's just getting to the share button. He just has to
That's good
reach.
stuff. That's it,
Very
man.
cool.
Photo mode. I'm in photo mode. Relax.
Very cool.
Thank you as always, Tide. Well, boys, I want to save our Kingdom Come Deliverance just to the tail end of what we're currently playing because I want to lead into the conversation of the game director's commentary on some reviews. So,
Okay.
I was traveling this week. I did not get back till basically Friday, and since Friday, I've only played Kingdom Come Deliverance and South of Midnight. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this off. I will throw this to Travis first this week because you did mention, even though you're playing 2 games for reviews, you did mention you jumped back into the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, which, probably the biggest game coming early this year, one of the biggest games of the year. So any commentary you want to add about Monster Hunter Wilds, since I don't know if I certainly haven't played it, Hogue. I don't know if you have. Nope.
I
So,
honestly
Travis,
didn't know there was
hit
an
us.
open beta.
I did not play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta.
Oh, I thought you just said before the show you played it. Or you're gonna jump into it. Maybe I misheard you.
Well, that was
You
our
definitely
segment.
mentioned it. You absolutely mentioned Monster Hunter Wilds beta.
That was our segment, folks. I hope you found
Yeah,
it informative.
Yeah, currently playing is going well. All right, well, Monster Hunter Wilds beta is up. I have talked to people at SG about it because they're very big on Monster Hunter. So there are some additions from the first beta. There are things you can unlock for the full game. And your character creator will carry to the full game. The game progress will not, as I understand it. So anyway, we'll obviously talk more about that in the coming weeks because I don't have a lot to say about it right now.
Well, can I ask Travis a separate question? Travis, have you gotten at all interested in the Star Wars Destiny stuff that I see being advertised on my timeline?
Yes, so I logged onto Destiny for the first time in quite a while, several months.
Because of Star Wars? They got
Because
you?
of Star Wars. Well, they got me specifically. They got me the armor. So the PR person reached out and was like, "Hey, biggest Star Wars fan that we know plays Destiny. Here's all the silver you need to buy all the Star Wars items." And I went,
Nice.
"Okay, all right, fine." So I logged in to buy them all. I put them on. The Stormtrooper for the Titan looks great. The Imperial Guard looks good for the Warlock. The Hunter Death Trooper is very weird because Death Troopers famously do not have capes, and they put a cape on this one. There's a lot of different Star Wars characters with capes that they could have chosen. Mandalorian would have made sense, but no, they went with a character that explicitly never has a cape, which is very weird. The Death Star Ghost is very funny. It does shoot a little death beam at you, which is funny. Yeah, did not know that. And then there's a TIE fighter that looks really janky and not very good. So that's my review of the Star Wars Destiny stuff. I still think these crossovers make Destiny feel cheap and Fortnite-y in a way that I don't love.
They do make it a less cohesive universe.
Yeah, it sort of just makes the universe feel goofy and not. But anyway, I think Destiny's pretty well and cooked right now, so I don't know that it matters.
It does appear to be on its last legs.
Yeah. So I've completely. I mean, I basically didn't have time to play it before. I was just doing it because I was doing a show, and then COG got really busy, and I've been on the busier side, so we just haven't been doing the Destiny show lately. And I don't know when or if it'll be back, but
much like the Destiny PR person, when I saw those advertisements, I said I have to ask Travis about it because I can think of no one better to tell me how Star Wars and Destiny are getting along.
Yeah, I will say it is cool that I now have that stuff in case I ever play Destiny again. You can be sure I'm going to be rocking that Stormtrooper, and I did spend a bunch of time trying to make my Stormtrooper look cool in Destiny. So it's all right. It's cool, man. I mean, it's funny as I went on a tirade during the last word like a year ago, being like, these crossovers are terrible, and nobody agreed with me. And then everybody was messaging me last week like, so still think that the crossovers are terrible, and I was like, yes, but I'm gonna buy I'm gonna put them on my character. So yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, anyway, I did play that for a second. That's a good shout. I kind of forgot that happened this week.
I didn't know when it happened, but I saw the advertisements for it.
Yeah, came out on Tuesday. They have a new season in Destiny, and it was very funny to log on, and it was like they had a cutscene that was 95% like archival footage from previous Destiny content, and they're like, and you're going back to an old location, and here's all the characters that you fought from before. And I was like, never change, Destiny. Never change. Recycling the content and acting like it's a new season. Very funny. They do have a new dungeon though, which I have not played, but I hear is good. So Destiny's chugging along. I don't know if it'll be able to make a comeback. It feels like they've been having a really tough go of it since they lost half of their team over at Bungie, but yeah.
I was going to say, between getting chopped up and then trying to focus on Marathon, I can't imagine there's a whole huge crew.
Yeah, I truly feel bad for them at this point because the final shape was great. I reviewed that game. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I stand by that. I thought it was a really, really competent expansion to Destiny. And then, immediately after that, all the content that followed was pretty weak. And then they lost half their team. And I just have really it's been hard to imagine a world where they are able to make a comeback under the circumstances that they're under.
I do like final shape. I do think also that sometimes you got to know when you just made an ending. Marvel?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I kind of think that we're in the post end game universe in Destiny, and that maybe they were planning on pivoting to Marathon, and then the kind of troubles they're having with Marathon's development meant that didn't happen. I don't really know what's going on, but it sucks to see.
Well, I know a lot of people have invested a lot of their time and blood, sweat, and tears in that game, whether making it or playing it. I hope people continue to have fun with it. But yeah, it does feel to be like a bit of a dinosaur. It's a little bit outside the step of the modern live service landscape. So I also don't see Destiny itself making a comeback. I think maybe a Destiny 3 could go in a slightly different direction and be successful, but I don't know whether Bungie has the labor or resources to do that right now.
Yeah, they have said that they're not working on it, and that I think if they started to work on it now, PlayStation probably wouldn't be able to fund to the ending of that, because it would take an enormous amount of time, I assume. And they have Marathon waiting in the wings, which I feel like is make or break for Bungie as a studio. So I don't know.
I feel uncomfortable with all these make or breaks. I feel uncomfortable with Mass Effect. I feel uncomfortable with Marathon. I feel like we got a lot more breaks than makes in our future, and I don't like that.
I think that's okay, Hogue, because me and my creative destruction. If philosophy. Some of these are going to have to get destroyed, but they already got swallowed by behemoths. So I don't. Maybe it's for the best.
So as we've said before, to your credit, you were one of the few people when PlayStation bought Bungie that was like, "This isn't good."
It was like, this is the end. This is going to be it. I mean, you only have to look at Bungie's history as a company to know this was never going to work. But yeah, it's same thing with BioWare and EA. They kind of became a different company when EA bought them, and I don't know that company was necessarily worse, but it was certainly managed differently. And I don't know at this point, what are people hoping will stick around? Sometimes you have to destroy to create something new, something that you will love, and that's the nature of economics, I guess.
Again, I prefer the phrase dynamism over destruction, that you just have to be allowing for people to move around to different uses of their time and resources. But I still have that kind of nostalgic love for companies like Bungie that has been making games for me my whole life, right? People don't talk about them anymore, but like I played Marathon in its original version. I played Myth. I played Oni. I played all sorts of games from Bungie that I liked.
Oni's great.
And if they get destroyed by this, if they are done, if BioWare is done, it will feel like something was lost, even if it's essentially a late funeral. That's something that was lost is years ago.
Yeah.
But we don't get to see that be lost at the time. We only get to see it kind of as it happens after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have friends at Bungie. I've been to Bungie HQ probably like 40 times. Like that has been a part of my life for a really long time. I probably wouldn't have a career at IGN if it weren't for the fact that I happened to cover Destiny since the very beginning of its reveal. So it's going to be like personally disappointing if something happens, but I try not to be nostalgic about these things. I guess it's
fine.
Things aren't good because they last. That's how I view it. Sometimes things are just good and then they're gone, and that's fine.
Well, on that somber note,
I love philosophy segments. We need a philosophy segment here on the
Oh, is this another segment? I'm down, Hogue. See, this is how you support somebody when they're proposing
Gamers Philosophy with Travis.
I'd love it.
We have some philosophy to talk about today.
Pipes. We put pipes in our mouths.
Should I get
the wig
all
out?
Philosophers have to look like they're in an old Tolkien
in my mind, all philosophers have a curved pipe, one of those long pipes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
I don't know a lot of philosophers. I don't know if that's clear.
My daughter's favorite subject right now is philosophy. So.
Really?
Nice.
What does she follow? What is she?
She has not picked a camp. She just likes thinking about these things.
Interesting. Not picking a camp. Now, which philosopher would that be?
She's not deliberately avoiding the picking of a camp. She just doesn't feel like she's collected enough information yet.
Interesting. So then there's probably a philosopher whose philosophy is not.
You can never know enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
You need to know more.
I have many friends that were philosophy majors, and some of them are very obnoxious because they went to UC Berkeley. And if you've never met a graduate of UC Berkeley, it's a very specific type of person. And
I mean, I lived and worked in Ann Arbor, so I feel like that's a Berkeley analog.
There you go. Yeah. So if you ever meet a philosophy major from Berkeley, it's impossible to say anything without them applying it to somebody's belief system and a certain philosophy. And you're just like, dude, shut up, bro. So good times.
I would certainly like to learn more about what the potential career outcomes of a philosophy major are.
You will be very happy to know that they are lawyers.
She does have lawyer as one of the possibilities, even seeing my career path. So hey.
Yeah. The lawyer is basically the only way you can make money if you majored in philosophy.
Well, and the job of a lawyer is more commercial than anything else, so don't bring too much philosophy into it.
Yeah. Oh,
Should I try and take us back to gaming, guys,
is this a good interval to do our lore dump segment?
Well, my daughter is big into philosophy. Is kind of a lore dump, isn't it?
There you go. Ames, what is your daughter into?
Not a whole lot. She's into animals. There.
That's cool. What is her favorite animal?
I have no idea.
What? You don't know your daughter's favorite animal?
All right, no, we're not
It's-
getting into judgment
all right.
calls on
All right.
dadding or otherwise. in
I
It's
wasn't
my-
boredom.
judgment.
it's-
I was just wondering.
It's my 32-year-old stepdaughter. So this is not a 6-year-old who's like wanting to grow up and be
Wait,
something.
so a 32-year-old who's into animals, does that mean like she's a veterinarian or she adopts animals? Like, what is the?
So she wanted to be a vet. She couldn't deal with the surgery aspect, so instead she volunteers at a wildlife center. And yes, she fosters and adopts a lot of animals. They have, I think,
Got
like
it.
10 animals in their house right now.
Got it. So when I heard she likes animals, I was imagining somebody drawing a hippopotamus into a coloring book. And you were actually dealing with
we're about
real-
25 years past that point.
Okay,
Yes.
that's cool. Very chill. My daughter.
I haven't
I
even
don't
gotten
know.
used to you saying my wife. Never
Yeah,
mind
I
my
know.
daughter.
What should I say? I have no.
I mean, that would be a lore
stake in
dump if
this.
you have a daughter.
Yeah, my lore dump is no, I do not have a daughter. I don't know. What should I say in this segment? I'm not going to have children because I am a selfish human being who doesn't want to sacrifice anything for anyone else.
There you go. That's why
Cool.
Travis doesn't have a daughter.
That's
Lore
not even a
dump.
lore dump.
Yes.
That's just widely
We
known.
knew that. Yeah, exactly. Good times. Good times. Also,
All
my
right.
genes are terrible.
All right. Hogue, before we get to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I'm sure you've played something else this week.
Well, yes. Although I will say that most of my time this week in terms of gaming has been Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
Okay.
I
all
did
right. Well,
want
we
to
can-
add, however, that last week we talked about Citizen Sleeper 2.
We did.
And I'd only played it for a couple of hours at the time, and I said it was a little overwritten, and it is. But the changes that they have made since the first game that I have now explored more completely are really excellent. They've built these little stories out of kind of skill tests and bringing teams together on these missions. And I really think if you at all like the first one, or if you just at all like the notion of kind of a Dungeons and Dragons tabletop RPG where you get to work through dice and solve problems and maybe not have them go so well, that Citizen Sleeper 2 is even more impressive than the first. I couldn't recommend it more. It's available on Game Pass. I really, really dig it. You have to be in the right mood for its writing style. You have to be in the right mood for its kind of weird sci-fi warbling sounds. But if you can get into that mood, if you find yourself in that mood, please do try it. It is an excellent game. I really, really like it a lot more than I even said last week.
Nice. I'm glad you played it some more. Yeah, it's like we said, it's very critically highly regarded. I think it's like in the mid to high 80s, and on the review cycle. So that's good. Yeah,
What you're saying is you weren't sure it was as good as you eventually realized it was, but then later suddenly you did realize it was that.
This is your rejection of my 12 hours concept, and that's fine.
Yes.
But this is still within the 12 hours.
No,
Don't
I was
judge things
actually-
on 2 hours.
I was actually going to make a joke about how it is a sleeper.
Yes, well, I was going to get there too. Don't sleep on Citizen Sleeper 2.
There you go. Don't be a citizen who sleeps on Citizen Sleeper 2.
It is really, really quite good, and the changes made are well considered from the first.
nice. Excellent.
Sorry,
By the way,
I see way more comments than I thought saying being disappointed that I did not sing the Hogue's Notes intro. Did not expect that.
Well, it's
So-
it's not a new game or anything. I mean, the other game that I played this week outside of Kingdom Come is Hello Kitty.
wait.
So
Oh yeah, so you already
You
talked
talked about
one.
that, yeah. So
Do you have any
it's
new
more like
games?
Hogue Note. It's Hogue Note.
It's
it
Hogue.
is, because I have a lot of thoughts on Kingdom Come Deliverance too,
It's
which,
Hogue.
as
I'm
I
sure
understand
they're
it, is a fairly popular game this week.
I'm sure they're going to be very well reasoned.
They're
I'm
going to be
waiting
very
to hear
well
these.
reasoned. People are going to be more informed by my thoughts on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
I'm sure. So we'll get there right after I comment that Ray or Sard said that what would Hogue and I have done if Travis told us that Dee was pregnant and that's how you broached the subject around the daughter conversation.
I like brought up your guys' daughters as a way to.
By the
Would've
way,
been
I'll
good.
have one soon.
That would have been smooth, Travis.
No, she is possibly even more anti-child than I am, which is a perk.
I'm
So
just glad to
excited.
hear that you had the conversation before getting married.
Oh, we had the conversation.
You want to be on
before
the
we
same
started
page on
dating.
that one, guys. Again,
know,
not legal advice, but please, if you're going to marry someone, be on the same page for kids, no kids.
Yeah. I have a friend couple who have been married for 10 years and are still not on the same page on that, and it looks painful. So yeah, before we were even dating, it was like that was a conversation we had. Very cool.
That's wise.
I'm gonna go ahead and back myself out of this lore dump segment. So we'll move on to
Mr. Unplanned Pregnancy. Ames.
We'll move on to Kingdom Come Deliverance too. Things like that happened in the 15th century. So 15th century,
not a lot of Planned Parenthoods in the 15th century, unfortunately.
15th century Bohemia. We are here. It has arrived. As I already said, my most anticipated game, at least of the early part of the year. And I had little doubt that this was going to be well regarded critically. They sent review codes out a month in advance, which, if you follow reviews, speaks of confidence in their game. And it came in right around 90. I think it may be sitting at an 89 now. So it's way up there. One of the highest rated games, obviously. Year just started, but very highly rated game, including several 10s from some major outlets. But I will preface all of that by, if you're not familiar with Kingdom Come Deliverance and didn't play the first one, because obviously this one seems to be getting a lot more press than the first one did, over the years. It is a unique game in the sense of it is a big Western RPG open world, but it takes place in the 15th century, and they do go for some forms of realism, meaning that you have things like light survival elements. You have to learn sword or hand-to-hand combat kind of in a unique way. You can't just save at will. They actually, integrate saving into either resting or creating potions. So there's some nuances to the game. We were talking pre-chat on the SG side of the house about, in some ways, not the game being similar, but just conceptually being a little similar to like Red Dead 2, where like, if you want to invest in the game world and really be part of that experience, it does take investment. Some people are going to love that. You're looking at one of them. Some people are not going to like it as much, and that's obviously perfectly fine. But for me, and Hogue, I'll be light because we can go back and forth on this a little bit. But for me, I got home Friday. So I didn't get to play the first couple days because I was traveling for work. I got home Friday and I started it Friday morning, and it's Sunday morning. I already have, I think, 13 or 14 hours into it. I have played it almost nonstop, and it is everything I was hoping for. It also runs very, very well on the PlayStation 5 Pro. So if you're wanting to play on console, it is an excellent implementation, I feel. It's single mode, but the frame rate's really solid. It's very pretty. And I've had no issues so far. So I haven't even done the first, outside of the prologue. There is a couple hour long prologue. Outside of that, I have not even broached the first main mission yet. I've just been getting into chaos, searching the world, hunting, doing side stuff, meeting new people. And that's the thing I kind of like about these games is it's an open world sandbox with systems upon systems. And if you're like me, who likes to figure those things out and just do whatever, it's the perfect type of game for that. Hogue, I'm going to pass to you because I'm pretty sure you're not as high on it as I am, which is fine, of course. But what's your experience been so far?
Yeah, so I am going to back you up on a lot of stuff, Ains. We're definitely going to get to that a little bit further on in this conversation. But I did want to say that the beginning of this game was not my favorite. I don't know whether I wasn't ready to get into Kingdom Come Deliverance again. I don't know whether the game starts with just a very, very elongated kind of prologue section. You called it a couple hours. It felt like more than that to me. Doesn't mean it was. It's just how it felt in the process. You've got like the forced stealth section where you're running around rocks. You got these various things that they're trying to teach you about the game. It's a long tutorial prologue. I didn't like it. They take that time before they open up the world to you. And then once you get into that world, it's very different feeling from the prologue. And it took me another beat to kind of get into the mindset to enjoy that as the game, which is the real game, more than the very linear storytelling. But in its defense, even countering my own kind of position on what I just said, I do think that the writing, the cinematography, the music in that opening section, which felt very much like a blockbuster movie, a historical blockbuster movie, to me, does make me feel like, okay, the next time I get that main mission going, the next time I do something, even in a side quest, I'm going to get some of that production value. I'm going to get some of that awesome storytelling again. And so I do feel like going forward into the world and doing those things when, like, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for me was exactly the opposite, right? Every time I went to a main mission, every time I went to a story, it didn't advance anything. It didn't entertain me in the way that I was looking for out of the game story. Kingdom Come is very different on that. You have to be in the mood to be told a 15th century medieval European story. But if you are, I actually think this game might well be one of the best I've ever seen. And that's very different from the first 10 hours that I played. I'm at about 35, I would guess, at this point. And in a week...
35?
Yeah, that's a lot for me. Yeah, I went and checked my playtime on the stats menu, not the PlayStation, because it's always wrong. It says I've played it for 100 hours or something. But I went into the inside stats because I knew we'd have this conversation, and I knew I was going to come out more positive than I had last let you know. And so, yes, this game is incredible, but I think even Western RPG is wrong as a description.
Okay.
It's not a Bethesda Western RPG. It is not this kind of driving, quest everywhere, go do the thing, go into a dungeon, find the treasure, bring it back to this shopkeeper kind of game. It has this kind of nested quest framework that I haven't seen in an open world, I don't think, before. So rather than going to the M and getting a quest and doing it and then having the M quests advance or what have you, basically everybody in this world is in a networked environment. So like the quest giver for one set of quests might be the second person you need to find out where the sheep went. Again, it's 15th century medieval questing in the third quest, and they might be the final person who's responsible for a murder in the fourth quest. And so like they all go together. It makes it feel like a very networked, complete world. But more than a Western RPG, to me, this game is an immersive sim. This game is something for the Deus Ex fans among you. You go in, you go say, I'm going to spend this next 2 hours searching for the flowers I'm looking for in this field, and I'm going to give the dried flower versions to my dog, who's going to help me find them, and I'm going to find those flowers, and then I'm going to go to the alchemy lab, and I'm going to do in first person exactly what this book tells me to do, right down to timing myself with the sand hourglass. And all of these things are done by you. They aren't just menus. They aren't just X buttons that you hit. And so you can feel very immersed in this environment. And I don't know that I've ever felt an environment in video games feel quite as real as the surround sound version of walking through the woods and across a stream in this game, right? Like, it is gorgeous for the most part. I do have some nitpicks in terms of the engine implementation, but Ains is exactly correct that you play this on a PlayStation 5 Pro. I imagine you play it on most of the other high-end systems. It's going to look great. It works very well. It doesn't drop frames as far as I can tell. It feels gorgeous and immersive the whole time. The nitpicks I have are that some of the implementations of this particular engine, and I don't know if it's an offshoot of Crytek or not. It's one of the labels that comes up when you start the game. But is that they do have like the environment and the landscape kind of change as you're looking at it in that way that makes the world feel a little bit less solid than some of the other engines that we see. And an early cutscene in that prologue period has, I don't know the right terms, I'm not the technical guy, I think it's screen space reflections on the lake. And so you've got this scene where you've got two characters in front of a lake, so it's kind of filmed on the horizon line, and their reflections cross the entire length of the lake behind them. So it looks like they're titans talking to each other because of the size of their reflections. It's that kind of thing that happens from time to time that kind of reminds you that it's more of an indie game than a AAA game. But every other time outside those cutscenes, you're walking around, you're going through the forest, whatever it is that you're doing, it feels handmade, it doesn't feel procedural, and it feels like you're actually in the forest. There's birds all around you. This game is freaking fantastic if you feel like being in a place. And I have in my notes Red Dead Redemption 2, because it feels like that. But for me, unlike Rockstar, who is constantly cynical and sarcastic and over the top in a way that I don't like for storytelling, this game is more of my speed for writing. It's more my speed for telling a story. It is not, I don't think, a great, like, realistic depiction of 15th century Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic, but it is the summer blockbuster movie version of that. It's the game for fans of Braveheart, right? Like that kind of take on what those eras might look like. So it's smoothed out for gamers. It's smoothed out for modern audiences that are interested in these topics, but it is very, very enjoyable to play. And my other nitpicks on user interface and things we can talk about, but my favorite part is how organic it is. It's really trying to not lead you to every possible thing that you can find. You always feel like you're stumbling onto something and figuring something out in this game, and I love it. I am totally on board with the grades that it has gotten. I'm probably a 9 myself.
Wow. lot said there, Hogue. So couple comments. So one, I'm glad that you have put enough time in and kind of stuck with it to basically experience the kind of open world freedom or whatever word you want to use that the game presents. I think that your comments about the engine. So I think some of that is the engine, some of that is the PS5 Pro implementation. So I've seen some distant kind of textures that shimmer a little bit. Some of that is the PSSR at work. So there's a few little things that stick out like that look a little odd at times. But as you correctly said, generally speaking, it's very beautiful. One of the things that really impressed me with Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 when I got into it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, is exactly what you said. Is like when you just walk into the woods in that game, you feel like you're in the woods.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. That's what blew me away about the first one. The first one, this is very similar to the first one. It's just, touched up on a lot of different areas, but it's the exact same with this. And I love it. It just feels like you talk about like video game escapism. This is that ideal type of game where it feels like you're somewhere else. And I think Deus Ex is a good comparison in the sense of just the freedom and the way you can accomplish things. So for instance, and you'll find endless stories of these in the KCD community, which is like, I needed something from the tailor. I didn't have enough money, of course, because you're poor at first. So I waited till nighttime. I tried to pick his lock. I broke the lock pick, so it caused too much noise. The guard found me, so I started running away. And then, it becomes a manhunt. And then it's just those types of just snowball scenarios can happen at any moment. And I think for me, I want to ask you a question. I decided from the outset that I was not going to save scrum at all. Whatever happens in the game, I'm dealing with,
That's how I play all games. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes I save scrum, I'll admit it. But in this one, you can't really even save scrum anyway, because you can't save at any point.
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is they added the save and exit. I don't believe that was at launch in Kingdom Come Deliverance. I think it was added halfway through, and they kept that for this game. And save and exit is really nice, because before you had to have the drink in order to get out at all and save your progress, and now you can at least leave, and that just has it has that one save that holds and deletes itself if you use it. And that to me is necessary as an adult person. And you just need to stop playing your video game from time to time. And so I really do appreciate that. But I also appreciate that you can make your own save your schnapps now, even if belladonna is a little hard to find, folks.
It can be. I actually stumbled upon this little picnic thing with a bag in the woods, and there was 12 belladonna and 12 herb Perry in it, and I was like, well, that was a score. Just little things like that happens.
But that's the thing, right? With this game, it's like, oh, I found a field of belladonna. Score.
Yeah, you get excited. Yeah, exactly. It does that really well. And I think the thing I really like about this game too, is because it, with all the different stats and abilities and all the different clothing you can put on, one thing I really like is you can have 3 different loadouts in this one, which makes it very easy to switch between your stealthy one and your full armor one.
A lot of quality of life choices. A lot of things in this game that feel like they thought about what maybe was a little too clunky in the first one, or that they could just improve upon. And the loadouts is great. The way they describe things, the way that the menu system works with the pull-up menus on the left and right, really makes sense for especially a console implementation. And I think it's really smart. Yeah.
It's extremely well done. And I'm 12 hours or so, 13 hours in right now, which means, I haven't even scratched the surface of this game yet. It is a massive game. So, I saw people saying that you can easily put 150, 200 hours in it if you want to, be completionist and kind of see all kinds of stuff. So it's going to be one that I'm going to play for a long period of time. I know we've stayed on it quite a bit. So I would say if you're curious, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is very cheap. You can get it, the complete edition for $5, and it will, if you haven't played either of them and you're curious or getting excited by this conversation or other people you see talking about it, I would play Kingdom Come 1 first, because generally speaking, it's going to show you what this game is like. Even though I would say 2, to Hogue's point, has a lot of quality of life upgrades and other things.
Yeah, 1 is the lesser game. Don't 100%. Make any mistake there. But
100%. But don't go spend $70 on this unless you're kind of vibing with what we're talking about, because it is a unique game. And if you're someone who likes either certain RPGs or especially like this. Hogue, you can agree or disagree, but this feels about as far away from a traditional Japanese RPG as you could possibly get. Depending on the game, obviously they're not all the same, but it's just
the only thing I
very
think it
different type of
shares
game.
with JRPGs or Japanese games in general is that it does have this kind of difference in tone for subquests and various characters that you will meet. So we're talking about 15th century Czech Republic. We're going to castles. We got things to solve, and then you will have a quest line that's entirely about you getting drunk and having to sort through something like Red Dead Redemption, and or like something that you might find in a Yakuza game. So they do have these kind of tonal splits that I think are good in the environment. You don't have to worry when we describe it as we do as something that you're just going to be picking flowers in a field. You're just going to be wandering around in the forest. They have a lot of story beats, and honestly, some of the best written quests that I've seen since Witcher. I want to point out one quest that I really have enjoyed so far called Bad Blood, which reminds me so much of the Bloody Baron. And not just because of the B alliteration, not just because of the reference to blood. It's just a really well done set of quests that you don't really quite know when it's going to finish in this game, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I just think it's fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Love it when the quest writing really works. And there have been a number of instances where that's already happened in this game. But I do think you have to get on its vibe, as Ain says. I put in my tweet when I talked about it, when I was a little bit more positive, that I got on the same chill level as the game, because it can be very chill. You're getting on a horse, you're going in the forest, whatever. But I can't recommend it more. It is really, really good. I'm very happy to have played it. I'm very happy to have seemingly an infinite amount of time left to play it, because I am not even through the first map at 35 hours.
Yeah. Agree on the quest as well. Like this one side quest I did, I thought it was going to be a couple steps. It was like hours upon hours. All sorts of different things happened.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is pretty amazing. And they can obviously end in a variety of different ways as well. There really is, true kind of choice, and there's skill checks and other things, and it's just a lot of fun. And by the way, the dice game, just like the first game, the dice game's awesome. I love playing that damn game. So,
I don't know if it's awesome, but it is very functional.
Yeah, it's fun. Travis, I mean, I'm going to slow you down. You've been talking too much. I'm going to let you comment on this first, just so we can hear someone other than me and Hogue. But the game director, I believe, whose last name, I forget his full name, is Vavra, right?
Is it Daniel?
Daniel Vavra, thank you. I know he's said some controversial things in the past. He's kind of been out there. He's in that space. So this was sitting at a night. Go ahead.
He's that Joseph Fares type character. He is out there saying stuff all the time.
Yes, he's very vocal, but he seems to be more antagonistic maybe than Joseph Fares. I don't know the right word, but he Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 sitting at a 90 on Metacritic, I guess. And a review comes in from Games Hub. I don't know Games Hub from anyone else, but Games Hub, that's a 5. And he decided to call this out and kind of insult them for the review. So being someone who works at a major outlet, we've had conversations on this on the past. I wanted to just bring this up and kind of get thoughts from the three of us on this, because it is a little odd. So here's the actual picture on the screen now. And, Games Hub basically says they basically found it to be kind of slow, a kind of slog. There's a fascinating sandbox, but you have to work too much to appreciate it. I disagree, but that's fine. That's not, we disagree with different reviews all the time. So Daniel takes it to Twitter and says, trusted news source, mission accomplished. We no longer have a 90% Metacritic score. Be proud of your excellent journalistic standards. And I feel that's, I won't say how I feel. I want to get your thoughts, Travis, because, this can happen. And with someone who has such a large audience or following as a game director of Kingdom Come Deliverance, striking at its kind of peak moment right now when everyone's raving about the game, seems a little, I don't know the word. It just seems to be
ill-advised.
Both of those probably work. But anyway, Travis, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I've had this happen to me where a developer has gone on social media, and I've actually had it much more aggressive than I think this guy did it. So I know that feeling. I would say as a reviewer, it's part of the job. You own your opinions. Some people are going to be mad at you. people who make games are not professional critics, nor are they professional people, or in terms of they're not professionally trained to be criticized, right? Like that's not part of their job description. And so I think you have to be prepared for that. Unfortunately, in this case, this guy probably is a rookie reviewer who didn't get paid for this review and is now going to get a ton of heat on them. And so I do wish developers would consider the consequences of their actions, especially since you might have a large fan base following you on social media who maybe not are all super responsible people and might start DMing this person and blowing them up and being quite cruel to them, even though they probably did this for free in their spare time based on that outlet and the fact that I'd never heard of them before. So I do feel bad for that, but I would say if you're going to get into this gig, you have to get used to criticism. You have to have thick skin, and creatives can be a little explosive sometimes on social media. I wish some of my own coworkers were less out there in their opinions on social media, but I can't control that, right? So I don't think he crossed any lines for me, but again, my line is pretty far. Like, as long as they're not sending people to after, like, I've had devs be like, hey, you should DM
pitchforks and
like get after him, like get him,
Yep.
That sort of attitude. In fact, my first review for IGN, the developers went onto their own Discord and asked all of their fans to attack me as often as possible. So I've been in that, but I would say he's a creative and he made something that he really cares about, and he feels like somebody took that away from him, the level of success that they were happily enjoying. So I get that. But I don't think that's the most constructive way to deal with it. I think people put a pedestal a little too much on the Metacritic rating. Sometimes that's for financial reasons. I don't know if anybody in listeners of the show know this, but sometimes for whatever reason, developers / publishers are compensated based on their Metacritic rating. This is just a thing that happens in the industry where they say, if you get an 85 plus Metacritic, then everybody in the company gets a $10,000 bonus. And so sometimes developers are understandably angry when one spoiler shows up and lowers the Metacritic rating low enough to ruin their bonus. That is a very unfortunate thing to have happen. I think it has become less common in recent years, which is great to see, because I think it's terrible. As a reviewer who wants to be able to just say whatever I think, I really don't think it's useful for reviewers to be responsible for if people get to feed their kids or afford their mortgage. It just is a really bad feeling as a person who has an obligation to be honest about how I feel. So I understand why there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in this, both on the personal pride and on the maybe this will affect my finances side. And so I do not blame anybody for being upset. If you are a reviewer, professional reviewer, you have an obligation to be the bigger person and just not respond to this stuff, unless it's funny, which sometimes I'll respond if it's funny.
To be clear, if Travis thinks it's funny, that's the only rubric, not if it's actually funny.
Well, I like to think I'm pretty good at knowing when something's funny.
I know you do.
But that's just my my comedy background interfering with my ability to be a reviewer. They come in conflict sometimes.
So let me ask this to elaborate, because I spoke to friends about this and they had some similar opinions, and I see Elu just typed this in the chat too, similarly, which is, generally speaking, and you and I have talked about this at length, Travis, but just for the benefit of the audience and discussion, generally speaking, in today's gaming industry, a 5 is not regarded as average or middle of the road. A 5 is generally regarded as a game that's not very good and may have some pretty significant bugs that maybe you definitely wait to buy or not buy at all. So is there any argument, again, just conversation, is there any argument for saying, regardless of whether you enjoyed it, and I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, regardless of whether you enjoyed it, the reviewer critically should recognize that this game, comparatively to other titles in the industry, is not a 5?
Yeah, I disagree with that in my soul. In my soul, I disagree with that. Art, there is no such thing as like objectively good. You can say it's objectively performs well, but that does not a good game make. And so your opinion can totally be that the game is a 5. I actually read this review after this story came out, and I agree that it reads like a 5. And at IGN, a 5 means mediocre. That means that it's like an unremarkable game that you really didn't connect with. And reading that review, it seems like this guy really did not connect with this game. All of the cool simmy stuff that you normally like, that the people who are expecting that going into this game liked, this person did not enjoy. And so they have a right to their 5 out of 10. Yeah, you can ask other questions like, should they have been the person to review this? I don't know the policy of the reviews at this company. I don't know if there was somebody with more familiarity with this genre or perhaps more interest in playing a game like this that maybe should have reviewed it instead. Those are all totally fair questions, but
yeah, I'd be more inclined to blame the editorial standards of the entity than the reviewer himself on the 5. But
I think that is a totally valid criticism, is you can ask like, okay, well, why did this person review it? But also, is it so bad to have somebody who maybe isn't in the bubble review the game and just have from an outsider perspective of somebody who maybe isn't inclined to automatically like some of the aspects of this game? I don't know that that's so bad. So I think people are entitled to their 5. There's no such thing as an objective review. And I'm sorry that it ruined somebody's Metacritic rating, but I do not think that means the review was irresponsible in any way.
Yeah, I don't even know if the Metacritic rating is the issue here. I think that's just his entry point for having this particular conversation. And look, I am still on X. I am still seeing what is propped up by the algorithm, and Mr. Vavra and Kingdom Come Deliverance talk has been all over that platform this entire week. So I do think part of this story is that he feels put upon by various journalistic practices in games reviews, period. I talked about it earlier in this video, but the first game came out and basically it was persona non grata in certain corners of the internet, and he was all but called a Nazi for making Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. And so I have a feeling that left some scars. And so when you see some of the responses about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I think that's probably where some of that comes from. And yes, I am very sympathetic to creatives and the creation process, because I think you need to be a little bit crazy to put that much of your heart and soul into something that you're going to release commercially to people and have them judge, whether that's reviewers or players. I think you have to be a little bit nuts. And that little bit of nutsness makes it very passionate when you look at how people are responding to your game. And so I am sympathetic to that position. The lawyer in me, certainly the business lawyer or the crisis communications person in me, says that's a very bad idea. Don't do that. You're not going to come out of that conversation, that interaction, looking better. But I understand why it's in your soul. I understand why you are so defensive about this product you've put out there, which seems to be reacting with other people. But it also seems to be like the version of, the YouTuber that only responds to the negative comments, right? You could get 9,000 positive comments and one guy says, well, you're an ass. And then you make a whole tirade video about that.
Yeah.
Not just because you're engagement baiting, which you might be, but also because you're crazy and the negative stuff gets to you more than the positive stuff. That happens when you put yourself out there in the world. So I'm sympathetic. I also would be very clearly advising, if I was in the room with him, to get off the socials or not interact in that same way. But I also don't want to kill the spark of creativity, the spark of life that makes this company operate, right? I think Warhorse has a very bright future ahead of it. And I think it seems like a big part of that is Daniel Vavra. So don't stop being you, but maybe don't read all the comments.
Yeah, it feels like you nailed it. It feels like responding to that one YouTube comment you get that's just negative out of the 1,000 that are positive. It's kind of odd. I mean, literally, I just looked it up while you guys were saying. Right now, it's breaking its concurrent player count as we're talking. It just crossed.
It's going to really connect with people, and it's going to be very streamable because it is so immersive sim. So I think it's going to be very, very successful.
The other report that came out this week was it earned all of its development money back. Remember, this was in development for 6 years. Earned all of its development money back in day one. So, great. That's very good.
Where are they producing it? Are they in the Czech Republic?
They're in Prague.
They're in Prague, yes. 256,000 concurrent an hour ago and still climbing. So, and remember, that's of just Steam, of course. That doesn't count all the people like us playing on other platforms. So, The game is obviously a big hit. I figured it would be. I hoped it would be, and it definitely is. So it's great to see. I like seeing games like this that are willing to kind of go down a kind of specific path and really build upon it succeed, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier of just with Bungie and BioWare and these companies kind of fading, but other companies like this, Warhorse Studios, who a decade ago was nobody, developing what could easily be one of my, if not my favorite game of the year. So it's great.
And it's going to dovetail into another conversation we have about EA and Dragon Age and Obsidian and everything else, which is to say, these are great success stories for video gaming, whether it's creative destruction in Travis parlance, whether it's dynamism in Hogue parlance. This is great that these things are happening, that you aren't bound necessarily to everybody that Legacy made games for you. And we aren't that far removed from CDPR being brand new to the scene as well. I mean, there are things that are massively successful that are making awesome experiences for us all the time that we don't know when the next one is going to come. We don't know where it's going to come from. They aren't limited to Ubisoft or Electronic Arts or Activision or Microsoft or Sony. And this is evidence of that. This is a fantastically performing game with a bunch of new ideas as to how to combine immersive sim and sandbox and Red Dead kind of character dynamism with everything else that goes into this particular recipe. And I think it could be massively successful for a whole different set of genres. There are no monsters or fantasy elements. That's not entirely true, but mostly true in Kingdom Come Deliverance. But you could easily see a Castlevania game with monsters or vampires or what have you being introduced in a similar kind of vein. And this is great for gaming. But yeah, Warhorse wasn't on my radar as of a decade ago. They very much are now. I talked last week about Eternal Strands and very much enjoying what Yellow Brick, I think is the whole name of the company, did for gaming. Yeah. So I am super enthused by this. I could not be happier with the way 2025 is going so far.
Yep. Agreed on all. Agreed. So, and just shout out to Warhorse. Those guys were always very good to us. I think I mentioned before, they were the first in-person developer I ever met with at SG.
Nice.
Prior to KCD releasing. Yeah, the first one at E3 in 2017, I think. So yeah, shout out to those guys. Always been nice, and I'm glad to see the kind of success. But you're right, that will dovetail into a different conversation or a similar conversation with a different viewpoint, which is we want to talk about EA's commentary on Dragon Age. So some stories ran this week with what we would call misleading headlines. Shocking, I know. But really talking about EA, the way it was summed up, I think erroneously, and we'll talk about this, is that EA said that Dragon Age wasn't successful because it needed more live service elements. Which, we have the actual commentary from the financial call. And I know Hogue and I were actually talking about this prior to going live today. So just wanted to touch on this. But here's what was actually said. And then you guys feel free to jump in once I give these quotes. So Andrew Wilson, CEO of EA, basically said on a financial call, and this is quote, "In order to break out beyond the core audience, games need to directly connect to the evolving demand of players who increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement alongside high-quality narratives in this beloved category. Dragon Age had a high-quality launch and was well-received by critics and those who played it. However, it did not resonate with a broad enough audience in this highly competitive market." The chief financial officer, Stuart Canfield, went on to say, "Dragon Age: The Veilguard underperformed icing the competitive dynamics." Oh, this copy paste went weird, but underperformed icing the competitive dynamics of a single player RPG market. Historically, blockbuster storytelling has been the primary way our industry bought beloved IP to the players. The game's financial performance highlights the evolving industry landscape and reinforces the importance of our actions. Oh my God, this another one of these corporate statements. So,
we get a lot of those here, don't we?
Word salad.
I know. Listen to this one. I'm going to start it over. Historically, blockbuster storytelling has been the primary way our industry brought beloved IP to the players. The game's financial performance highlights the evolving industry landscape and reinforces the importance of our actions to reallocate resources towards our most significant and highest potential opportunities.
I don't know what you're talking about. That reads like a board meeting to me.
I actually followed that. Was that
Yeah.
2 sentences or 1?
Well, there were 2 that he just read.
There were 2 he gave. That whole
If it were
deal
1
at the end
sentence,
was
I would be more critical of it. Like if there
No,
was, sometimes they do that where there'll be like a semicolon, and then I'm like, okay, now you're killing me. But
and this was
2 separate sentences. That makes sense.
And I think what's really important about this that I don't think was properly covered in various outlets is that this is an investor call, right? So this is
Correct.
extemporaneous. They're prepared with bullet points and whatnot, but it is for the purpose of talking to investors. And what this investor call is about is EA's most recent financial performance, which had 2 major negatives, and that was their soccer game, Football Club, and Dragon Age Veilguard. And this is responding to that to tell investors that management knows what it's doing, right? And this gets reported in various places as EA suggests that Veilguard might have been better with live service, but that's not what is happening here. And this is very likely to be a Virtual Legality episode this week, honestly, because this is one that I read the investor call transcript first, and then I saw all the headlines come out about Veilguard needing to be a live service, says Electronic Arts, etc. And that's not what this says. What this says is investors, people that gave us money. We know we told you that Football Club and Dragon Age were going to be big sellers this quarter, and it turned out to be not the case. But we at management don't need to be fired. Why? Because we know what happened. And this sentence about blockbuster storytelling, about evolving industry landscapes, about everything else that you just talked about, Ains, shared world features, is, in my opinion, one thing. Investors, you guys are smart. You know what the video game landscape is doing. You saw what Baldur's Gate 3 did. You saw what Larian did. You saw how much it sold. You saw how successful it was. We want you to know this took a long time. This was many years in the process. We know it wasn't Baldur's Gate 3. When they talk about shared world features, when they talk about deeper engagement alongside high quality narrative, they're talking about Baldur's Gate 3. We didn't miss it. We are not asleep at the wheel here at Electronic Arts. And that's what's trying to be communicated. Not that Veilguard would have been better with live service, which is not the same as shared world features and everything else that they actually say anyway, but that it is not Baldur's Gate 3, but we are aware that that was in the marketplace. That is what the purpose of this conversation is. Investors, don't fire us. And everything else that you kind of take as they suggest live service is maybe going a step or two too far. I understand how you can get there. I understand how you can try to read between the lines of what they are saying here. And I don't know that it is as eloquently put as I would prefer out of my C-suite if I'm looking at a document like this. But I don't think you can just assume that they wish Veilguard were a live service game, because that is not what is presented here.
Yeah, that quote you read specifically reads to me as like, look, we make our money by having like large budget projects that other small studios can't afford to do. And so that's the path to us continuing to be successful, is let's use our money bomb to put more effort into these big AAA games. So I get what they're saying there. I think that's probably correct. It's very hard as an indie studio to do big AAA stuff.
Well, people really harped on shared world features. But
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you
I
that
think
that's a
people are honing in
reference
on the
to
wrong
what's in Baldur's Gate 3. That's a reference to having multiple players in the same world. It's a reference to, we saw this other thing that investors would have been aware of that made money for a much smaller team in Larian. And you think you wasted your money with us because we spent a lot more of it over the last decade to make a game that did worse than that. But we are not asleep at the wheel. We understand that that game existed. We couldn't have tacked towards it in the time that it took to develop this game.
Sorry, Travis. I thought you were going to say something.
No, it's good.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. So I think this was taken. I mean, it is EA. It's Andrew Wilson. I get it. There's a lot of narrative about Dragon Age right now. I get it. But let's at least be genuine about what was actually said and try to break it down from that perspective.
Well, and at the risk of getting Travis mad on this, I do think that there is an engagement bait component here from games journalism and outlets. Live service is one of those trigger phrases that will get people to click on your article, will get people mad at EA. EA is an easy company to be mad at. They are very often tone deaf. They are very often far from the pulse of the industry. And so you say EA suggests that Veilguard would have done better if it were live service, brings up all the culture war stuff that happened when Veilguard came out, brings up everybody hating EA, and gets all that SEO optimization for the phrase live service. So I really do think that that's an issue for games journalism in general. And certainly when you have kind of a couple of outlets go out with that framework, I think it's a snowball when you say, okay, I can also make that article at my outlet when Eurogamer and IGN are doing it.
I will say that I understand your concern there, but I would say you have it exactly backwards, which is that games outlets are saying, wow, our readers really seem to care about this sort of stuff. So anytime it comes up, we should cover it for them. And so that's the angle that writers are doing it on. It's like, oh, but this
that's
investor
just
call.
That's just a different patina on the same thing. This is what they click on. It's what they want to hear.
People say like, oh yeah, let's create, like, the angle is people say these outlets are basically manufacturing content or saying things that straight up aren't true in a headline, and then you click on the article and it's not actually about that. I would say that there are certainly examples of that happening, but the vast majority of outlets are simply responding to their own readers' desire to be informed about specific topics. And so if we put Reb on an investor call for EA and she is listening to all these board people talk, she's trying to find stuff that she thinks our readers will care about. And so if they mention, hey, maybe Dragon Age would have been better with share world stuff, she's going to write about that because she knows that all of the IGN articles that she writes that are about that topic, people respond and connect with and are commenting and clearly care about. And so it's sort of like a chicken or egg and also a motivation thing, even if it results in exactly what you're talking about, which is like people being mad. I don't think IGN controls whether or not players are mad about something. They're just covering it because they know that their readership cares about that thing. And
okay,
so
but shared world features is a nice way to talk about this at length, because that's not live services. That is not live services. It can be read that way if you feel like it, if you want to push that story, but it is in context here not live services, and it's certainly not live services on its own.
I think there was a bit more that could suggest that they were going in that direction, but I agree. I think I don't think it was especially hyperbolic on either end, but look, it's something they're talking about in a board meeting. Do you think? Players care about it, so it's something to put out there, I think.
But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, it's, if we talk about it in this way, then players are going to be mad at EA. They're going to care more about it, and we can do the next article that says the same thing.
Yeah, but I would say that your motivations there again are exactly backwards in terms of like how people at IGN are thinking about it. They're thinking about it of like, look, they care about this stuff. And so anytime an investor's talking about a traditional single player game and how it didn't perform well enough and it would have been better with multiplayer components, we're going to put that out there because our readers have opinions on that and are pushing back on developers on that. And I don't think it helps anyone to be like, let's not cover this. But also, you shouldn't find excuses to talk about it when there's no reason to. I do think this one's justified. It's them talking about how a beloved franchise that is famously not multiplayer didn't do as well, and maybe it would have if it had online components. I think that's fair game. And I can tell you that we have conversations in our Slack about like whether or not we should cover this or how it should be covered anytime any topic comes up like this. And there are plenty of opportunities where we pass, even though it could get lots of clicks, just because we're like, look, I just don't think that that's fair to talk about it in this context, etc. Like, we have editors, we have people, a group of people talking about this stuff all the time, what to cover, what not. They don't always get it right. We don't always get it right at IGN, but it's something that we think about, and our intentions are basically the opposite of what most people think of when they think of clickbait. It's really just like serving your readership, which some people describe that as clickbait. I would argue that that is not what clickbait means, but that's fine. That's fine. People can have opinions on this.
Yeah, and I do want to say that on the IGN side of things, because it was not one of the articles that I had brought up to discuss on the live service element, the headline, at least right now, is Veilguard failed to resonate with a broad audience. Gamers increasingly want shared world features. So that is not otherwise editorializing in the headline. I don't have an objection to reporting on this. I think it's good to report on investor calls and financial reports. I think that's great. I think gaming probably needs more of it. But again, I'm a business lawyer, so take that however you like. So I think IGN's headline here is fine. I have no issue with them reporting on it. I guess I have more issues when the headline itself suggests how you're supposed to read these quotes. And there are a number of outlets that say they're talking about live services, folks, get angry. And it's like, well, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's helpful to the conversation.
It's also fun to note that I'll just share some insider baseball with you guys, which is IGN has a Slack channel where we pitch all of our headlines for any story we're talking about, and people comment on the specific phrasing and what's fair and not fair to include. And we're trying to strike a balance between getting people excited to read an article, because obviously we want people to read the article.
That's the job.
And being truthful and not hyperbolic, and using the right words and adjectives and verbs, and trying to keep the language not editorial, unless we're writing an editorial, which people do confuse news articles with editorials all the time, which is a whole separate problem. But at least when we're talking about news, we're just as thoughtful as we can be, given that we have a team that's pumping out news articles constantly about the specific phrasing what we're using in headlines.
I really have no objection to your headline, other than the fact the Eurogamer headline is awful, and you guys own Eurogamer now. That isn't really fully your fault.
Yeah, get them in line.
I actually don't know what our relationship is with Eurogamer. Sometimes when we own other outlets, it's very hands off, and sometimes it's not. So, I don't know.
If you could own SG and be hands off, I'll talk to you. Just
Ames would like the sack of money, but he doesn't otherwise want to see you.
Yeah,
I'm going to start calling you Bungie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what you guys said, not to be in the middle, but I think Eurogamer's headline is a joke. Like, I saw it and I was like, okay, what did they actually say? Because I just know at this point, when I see a headline like that, I'm going to go and look to see what was actually said, because, that's just the industry we're talking about here. So when I read what the actual investor call commentary was, I was like, yeah, that headline sucks. May not suck in terms of clicks, but it sucks in terms of representing what was actually said. And I think Hoag's right in the sense that some outlets, some YouTubers, some, there's percentages here. It's not everyone. There's people that will jump on that. And they will jump on a reason to be mad at EA or mad at the developer, mad at whatever related to it. But reading the headline that IGN wrote makes a lot more sense, because that is a much better representation of what was actually said.
YouTubers are lucky because they can just put a question mark at the end of their hyperbolic statement, and that makes it not hyperbole because it's a question, right?
Of course,
like,
yeah.
Is Dragon Age going live service? And then the answer is no, because they just said one comment. But you can use that as a headline. I'm very envious of that. It would make my headline writing a lot easier. By the way, I am known at IGN as being maybe the worst person at writing headlines on the team. Because
at IGN, do the article writers predominantly write their own headlines?
They do, but we pass it through a think tank especially if it's news. But when I write previews, I would come up with those headlines because it's a editorial headline.
I could probably tell. There's a lot of puns in those.
Yes. However, Ryan McCaffrey is maybe the best headline writer I've ever seen. He just knows exactly what things to focus on to make something sound interesting. And I have learned so much from him, and I still suck. So yeah, in case you're wondering, headlines are hard. They're actually hard because you want there to be something meaty and interesting. You kind of want it to be irresistibly clickable. But when I'm writing
lie to them. Yeah.
Well, it's not about the lying. It's about is my preview of South of Midnight is the most important thing. The fact that it looks like this other game that other people really like, because you want people to learn about South of Midnight. But if I just say South of Midnight's music is really cool, because that was my favorite thing from the preview I did, nobody's going to click on it and nobody's going to learn about this cool game. And so you kind of have to.
Did I talk about Kingdom Come's music? I don't think I did. So good.
See?
It's great.
People forget. But yeah, it's hard because you're trying to do the small indie game of service. You want people to know about it, but in order to do that, you have to be like Eternal Strands is a great example. I wanted to write about this cool game that nobody had heard of, but the only thing that people would click on is if I said former BioWare developer works on new game, but the game is nothing like any Bioware game, and so it can be a little misleading to throw that out there. And so it's sort of like, well, do I want to do the best service to like more people seeing this article and learning about this game that they really like, or do I play it closer to the chest, not include any references to Bioware or the fact that they have leadership that was at Bioware, and just talk about the content of the game, and then nobody clicks on it? And so that balancing act is actually really hard, and it's not always about like I want more clicks. Sometimes it's just about like I want the word to get out about this game that nobody is gonna have otherwise heard about because they just lost their publisher, and I'm revealing the game to the world for the first time, and I want it to make a splash so that people can be as excited as I am. It's like all these different conflicting obligations and desires that you have to just put into 8 words, and that's hard. I suck at that. I'm like truly bad at it.
No, it is very true. I have trouble with YouTube video titles and thumbnails, certainly. That was something that I had to learn, and I'm still not good at it. The very first thing I had to learn is that the YouTube algorithm absolutely hates puns. I am also a pun guy, and I have little turns of phrase that I like to do to talk about my video content. And you can see it in my history, kind of going away from that and being more direct with what I'm talking about, especially in the titles, which are kind of the index for the algorithm. And I am fully on board with that being difficult and wanting to be clickable, but also not wanting to oversell or undersell or move the ball from what you're actually talking about in your article, or for me for videos. So I get that. I was just curious as to whether or not IGN actually wrote its own headlines, because sometimes when I comment on headlines, especially in my show called Hangouts and Headlines, I will say that a headline is not representative of an article, and sometimes the journalist will get in contact with me and say, well, I don't write those, or my editorial team wrote that for me.
Yeah, so sometimes what'll happen is somebody will write a news headline, maybe it gets changed, by the group because they want to change the context or clean it up or whatever. And then sometimes the social team will repost it, and they'll come up with their own headline that they think will perform better on social, and it completely changes the context. And so that is also a thing I've seen happen, where like the social team would be like, oh, this is a cool article, I'm going to promote that. And then they kind of write their own social focused headline. And then all of a sudden the editor is on the phone going like, take that damn post down, or edit the headline, because that's not what we said in the article. And so, there's a little bit of telephone when you're with a large editorial body. I still think it's a good process to have. I think the fourth estate is important, but it's not always clean or perfect. And, people forget the games industry is still dominated by really young people, and we're probably the worst at being editors in the industry. Like if you go to more hard, serious news outlets, they're typically older and they're better at this than we are.
Fair enough.
Well, they have more experience. I don't know whether they're better or not.
A lot of them are better. I can say I'm worse than everybody who works at the Washington Post. I'm comfortable saying that.
We need more puns in legal documents, Newspin said.
True. Totally.
I am honestly very careful in legal documents. I get mad. People know this from Virtual Legality, but I get mad when like judges use too many pop culture references or do puns in their actual legal decisions. Like, these are people's lives. This is actual money at stake, that people are getting incarcerated or whatnot. Don't tell me about your feelings on the latest Severance episode in a footnote. Like, I hate that stuff. So yeah. I'm of two minds on this. Yeah, I can put that in my YouTube channel. I can put that in my video content. I can put it here in the Season Gaming Bitcast. But no, not in my contracts. Don't mess around with stuff that is that important.
And I say mess around with all of it for the lulz.
For the lulz, of course. That's what judges should do. Let's get the super chat from Marvin.
Marvin CZ offers 500 Czech crowns. Krona. I'm glad to hear all this about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I love the first, and I'm looking forward to playing the second, but I decided to stick with good old games, where it will unfortunately release with a 1-month delay.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, that's a shame. I don't blame you. GOG is awesome, but that sucks that it's on
GOG is awesome. Good old games.
But yeah, definitely great. I mean, Hogue and I kind of raved about it enough, I think. But yes, look forward to it, Marvin. I'm sure it'll be even better a month from now when they just continue to touch it up here and there. So yeah, hope you enjoy it when you're able to play it. Thank you.
I think it's a lot smoother of an entry point than 1. Honestly, it very much feels like the sequel jump we talk about with other series. They've smoothed out a lot of their thought process, the initial passes at figuring out what this series was going to be, and I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is great. It reminds me of the jump between Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, honestly. And I don't know whether there'll be a Witcher 3 as part of this story or not, but I am looking forward to whatever this team winds up doing.
I know I haven't said anything about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 because I have not even seen the title screen to the game. I plan on playing it today now that I'm done with my previous review. But I will say this. Some of my love of the first Kingdom Come Deliverance is in its lack of polish and its like weird wasting of your time in like a very fun and entertaining way. And hearing everybody talk about how this is more blockbustery has made me less excited to play it. I will say that.
It is. It's got some AAA DNA in it now. I mean, they've taken lessons from modern design.
Scares me a little bit because to me, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is Morrowind, and this looks like Oblivion. And I'm wondering if the next one's going to be Skyrim. I'm just saying, not
more like Daggerfall to Morrowind.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine. But to me, like not being able to read in the first one and that whole thing, and that's gone now. And I'm just like, there's little things like that where I'm like, oh, like you will never have that back, will we? So I'm very excited to play it. I'm sure as soon as I play it, I'm going to take back everything I'm saying because I'm completely out of ignorance right now. But
I agree with what you're saying.
There's something about the first one that was special and perfect to me in a very unique kind of way. And I feel like 2 is at least going to be partially removed from that in a way that I'm a little nervous about. So.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying. The first one, I think, gets graded internally, at least in my mind, on a curve a little bit because you can feel the team trying to bat for the fences and maybe not fully having that under their belt. This one feels like they got it. They know what they're doing. They understand what the mission is, and it's a lot smoother for it. But, yeah, it does lose at least a little bit of the friction on the outside of figuring out how things work. The combat is very much smoothed out and feels better than the first one. Doesn't feel as clunky. There are still little bits of clunk in it, though, so I think you'll be happy.
Very cool. I was going to say, like, I think you're going to be fine.
I will say the lore never fails to, because you play a fantasy RPG, you're used to there being, like, some made-up god that they keep referencing or whatever. Like, that's just part of it. My buddy Nick came over to my house and saw me playing the first one, and he had no context for the game. And then we met like a religious person in the game, and she goes, "Lord Jesus!"
Yeah, you told us.
And he was like, like they just used like regular religion. I was like, yeah, it's just so funny.
I don't even want to say it on this show, but like I was playing dice this morning. And like you can hear all the taverns people around you having their conversations, and one was joking with the tavern maid about like things that I don't want to say on the show, and it was just so funny just sitting there playing dice and hearing this conversation in the back speaker. Like, there
is a lot of language in this game. I will warn people about that. The design is to make you feel like medieval peasants, maybe not the most couth of folks. So like that's part of the world building, but the language is like a Guy Ritchie film.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I love that. You know, that speaks to me. I want
it's great.
I want to feel like I need to take a shower after I play video games.
It's great. New Spin says, just to circle out this conversation, I'll play KCD when it implements a shared world experience.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's write an article about that.
It is kind of hilarious that EA's commentary came out this week, the same week this big single player RPG is just like smashing everything. Kind of funny. Anyway. Speaking of EA, more exciting thing I think happened this week, at least for me. I don't know about you guys, but Battlefield. So Battlefield we already knew was returning. They actually have 4 studios working on Battlefield right now, which is would normally not inspire confidence for me. But what does inspire confidence is the fact that Vince Zampella is leading and overseeing everything Battlefield now. And if you're not familiar with Vince was the guy who made Call of Duty essentially what it is today. He's the guy who made Titanfall, and he basically almost everything he touches in the shooter space is fantastic. Also made Apex, right? So he came out and they announced Battlefield Labs, which we were joking about earlier, which is essentially they're in pre-alpha for the next Battlefield game now, and they said they're going to basically conduct the largest kind of user play session that they've done for a multiplayer game before. And he has a quote here that basically says, "I've been playing Battlefield long before I joined the team." He said the game has so much potential. To find that potential with us being pre-alpha, now's the time to test the experiences our teams have been building for our upcoming launch. Battlefield Labs empowers our teams to do that. And they showed they showed a trailer of what they're working on, and then they showed basically like a 5 to 10 second clip of the game in pre-alpha, which looked insane. Exactly what I expect out of Battlefield. So I'm really
pumped like Battlefield.
Yeah, I adore Battlefield. Battlefield is my realistic shooter. I use quotes there to combine against Halo and Gears. That's like my holy trinity. So I've wanted Battlefield back in its prime since basically 4, and I haven't gotten it. 5 was fine. 2042 got better. Still not fantastic, but it's fun. But I hope Battlefield can get back to that peak experience. And I hope this helps them get there. So.
Seems like EA is hoping for that with a lot of their franchises these days.
Well, Battlefield is a shared world experience. I might have So
it is.
It is.
It is. It's not known for its blockbuster narratives.
And let me tell you, the players are not very good at sharing in that world.
No, they break down all the walls.
Yeah,
they share all kinds of ammunition. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's an interesting.
I will say Vince does have the touch. I mean, he
does.
has a number of successes in a row. He has a feel for what people like. And I think this is a good idea from EA. I'm actually surprised that more of the really big, well-resourced companies don't do this kind of soup to nuts. We control an early access period and every aspect of it ourselves rather than going through a platform to control that. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think they have to be enthused just by the number of people that wanted to participate. I don't do these things. I'm very much a transactional business lawyer type guy. It's like, well, I'm not going to give you free labor if you're not going to pay me for my time. So enjoy, go make that game great. I hope it's great when I pay for it. But I think this is a good idea for them. And I think they are, at this point, sick of releasing Battlefields and getting destroyed upon release. So I think this is wise to have the community involved. Now, that can go too far, right? We've seen in the past things like EA contributors for their FIFA franchise and other things maybe go too far and go in directions that the overall audience doesn't like. So you have to manage that even if you've got this all set up. But I think this is the right direction for them to go. And I am sure that shooter fans would be better off if a strong Battlefield were out in the market.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Agree. Vince has done that. And the interesting thing about this one, too, so like I said, they have 4 studios working on it. It's, was it Ripple, Criterion, Motive, and I'm blanking on the 4th. But the other interesting thing
is Respawn? Is Respawn not involved?
Oh, it's probably Respawn. That makes the most sense. Someone can correct me if that's wrong. But the other thing that's interesting is, and I'm blanking on his name, but the lead director who left old school Bungie with Halo, who set up his own studio, they developed that game Disintegration, which didn't do too well. But Marcus Lato. Marcus Lato is leading, I believe, Ripple Studio, and he's leading the single player portion of the next Battlefield. So it will have single player and multiplayer as well. I think I have that right. Someone can double check me, but they have some big money and big talent behind this to bring Battlefield back to kind of its peak. And like I said, the fact that Zampella is now overseeing all of it inspires a lot more confidence than if he wasn't. So,
yeah, it does. As long as you're not looking for Titanfall 3 anytime soon, and you shouldn't have been anyway.
Yeah, very different.
Why not?
Because they clearly put all their eggs in the Apex basket, and Titanfall was never a big seller for them.
Titanfall 2 is awesome, though.
I have heard people really talk well about Titanfall 2. I never liked the campaign as much as others.
You didn't play? You don't like the campaign? Campaign's
not as much as others.
Titanfall 2? Titanfall 2's campaign was great.
It was fine.
You get to become best friends with a robot.
Indiana Jim said Respawn's not working on Battlefield. He's right. It was not Respawn, was the 4th. It's DICE. Of course it's DICE. I just blanked on the name. So DICE will affect Motive and Criterion. So.
A developer that has never had DICE in their game.
So they brought over Zampella without Respawn.
That?
They just took him from Respawn to put on Battlefield.
Well, he's head of Respawn still. And he's the group general manager for EA Studios organization.
Okay, that's a lot on his plate.
Yes. They promoted him a couple years ago, I think, to like this big head of stuff. I think probably because, as we joked, things he touches just work.
They do.
Now
He's like the opposite of Herman Hulst. Sorry, Herman.
Hey, don't talk bad about my boy Herman. I'm tired of this bullying, bro.
I said sorry.
You're such a bully, dude. Somebody kill Hogue.
Now,
commenters, kill Hogue.
I just like you're such a bully. Somebody kill him. It's a good bit.
Wait, first of all,
as you know,
I enlisted others to kill you. All right, that means legally you can't sue me.
Are you familiar with the term incitement?
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
Look, my education level is not high enough to know what that word is.
This is BS. This is some BS, folks. He's going to claim insanity.
All I can say is if Hogue is dead by the end of this podcast.
If he claimed insanity, Hogue, people would just have to pull out all these episodes of Bitcast. He'd have a pretty strong case.
Dude, this is my alibi.
I mean, honestly.
That's why I've been doing this show for free for so long. I'm building a case.
What was I going to say? The thing I was going to say about Zampella, though, as we all know, right? Like, yes, everything he's touched directly has been excellent, but, you know, he can get spread too thin or maybe not have the direct influence that he has in a smaller group. So we'll see. I hope.
Thin, like butter scraped across too much bread.
He's got a Star Wars and a Lord of the Rings today.
2 Lord of the Rings references. I also said you have no power here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But you know what also doesn't have any power? PlayStation Network.
Very great transition. This is why you make the big bucks, Zane. This is it. This is that type of just dynamism.
You can't teach it.
We love.
You can't teach it. PlayStation Network was down again for nearly 24 hours. All hell broke loose. Nobody could play their games. Everything was broken, and it felt like 2011 all over again. It's back now. You're okay. But yes, it was down for nearly a day from Friday night through most of yesterday, I believe. So yesterday evening.
At least it was the perfect time for it to be down. Right when the weekend started up.
Well, I mean, if it were Monster Hunter Wilds weekend, can you even imagine?
Yeah, people were pretty furious about that between Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds. So apparently, I want to comment because I was asking people about this. So apparently there's a setting on PlayStation where that's related to game sharing and or offline play preference. So if you had the offline play preference, checked, you could still play your digital games. If you did not have that checked, you could not access your games digitally. So I would suggest that everyone on PSN or PS5 go check that for the future.
I have to say, I was not affected by this takedown. I don't share my games. I don't know what I have checked over there. I only noticed that the network was down because I couldn't add or remove things from my wish list. I originally thought that I had hit some kind of ghost maximum to my wish list numbers, and I tried to remove something. Yeah, the wish list on the PlayStation Store.
I thought you said
there's no maximum to a wish list.
I was like, he's got a witch list. He's hunting down witches, dude. Like, this is crazy.
That's what I do on my off hours.
Oh, witch hunter.
He keeps a list, guys. Don't get on that list. You don't want to be on it.
The most boring witch hunting movie ever made.
But like literally, I could access the PlayStation Network store. I could watch the trailers. I could look at everything that they had. I could play my games. I was playing Kingdom Come. But I couldn't add anything to the wish list. It's how I knew something was wrong. And that was all that affected me, period. So I am very sorry for people that weren't able to play their games. I know that sucks. And I think PlayStation has an issue in informing people what's going on. I don't really think they communicated properly during this whole time frame.
They didn't. No, they didn't. In fact, they still haven't said what actually happened. They just said that they're going to give people 5 days compensation of PS Plus or whatever you're subscribed to, essentially.
All right.
Is compensation.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Yeah. That's, that is. So, yeah, I don't know.
I can't complain.
I don't know what happened. I know someone
it didn't happen to anyone and that you should begin a conspiracy theory about it.
Nope, no conspiracy theories. I think it sucks if it happened to you. I just think it probably is at least a little bit overblown for what impacts the average person experienced from this period.
It's funny you say wish list, because what I noticed, because I was playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I play locally, and I play on a disc as well. But the thing that I noticed was my captures weren't uploading. So, I go into the PlayStation app to find my captures, and it was just failing. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? That's when I noticed. But luckily, I wasn't impacted either. But I know a lot of people who I speak to about this couldn't play their games. And they basically said they've got to turn game sharing off. Apparently, if you have game sharing on, I think it's a combined option. I think Alex
Well, it's like
said.
the same with the Switch or the other systems that do this, right? So you have a home-based system, and you have another system that has access to your account that's not home-based, and that system has to check in with the server and say you actually have this license. So if you have your sharing and you're not the home console, I imagine that anything with the network is a problem. Because when I take my Switch out of my house and I go on trips, I have to remember which settings I have because we have 2 Switches, and I have to remember which one can work on the plane and not.
Edward said that he's played an Elden Ring, and it kicked him off of online mode into offline mode, which, happens on From games when that stuff like that happens. So that makes sense.
It happens
Anyway.
even when PlayStation Network is not having issues.
Pretty much.
Just built into the infrastructure.
That's
right.
Also
Little
true.
treat for you.
Feature, not a bug.
So anyway, hope everyone's good, and just check that setting if you have any issue. Hopefully you can get that sorted out for any future outages, because nothing is guaranteed in the online space, and it will happen again. By the way, we talked a lot about CEO commentary, so I wanted to talk about this little piece, which is Strauss Zelnick, Take-Two CEO, was asked again about whether he truly thinks, Travis with his looks today, truly thinks Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out in 2025, and people are doubting him. And he reiterated, it's coming out this year.
Guaranteed.
And let's talk about reporting again, because some of the headlines here were Take-Two confirms Grand Theft Auto 2025. It's like,
Confirmed.
No,
Locked.
they can't read the future
Coming.
any more than you can. They think it's coming out in 2025. I would not suggest that that is in fact the case. Again, investor calls, investor context, everything is running fine. The buses are on time. You're going to get all your money. Those sacks of money, they're coming in. Just wait till fall of 2025. No worries, friend. And when we give the delay announcement, well, we didn't know that when I said all this.
Pretty much.
I mean, look, he's confirming it.
He's claiming it. You guys know how to use different words in your headlines. I know you do.
We do. But he confirmed it.
Confirmed. That's
I
what
did
you're
see-
saying. Don't use claim.
It's a
Use
personal
confirmed.
confirmation. That's fine.
No, I did see confirmed in a number of headlines. And no, it's not confirmed because we have no idea whether it's coming out in the fall. I've talked to you about this, Travis, and about headlines about things happening in the future should maybe have a little bit more circumspection about what we say is actually going to happen, even when the companies say that they're going to happen. But I don't think it's coming out this year. I think it's coming out next year. That's fine. But yes, Take-Two, it's important for them to tell their investors that money train is coming in.
The problem is that the dance of language with headlines is the correct word is reiterates, which is a word you can't use in a headline because it is above a 10th grade reading level, which is what you're supposed to stay at for writing news articles. So then you either have to say that it's a confirmation or that he's speculating, which is, I would say, editorial if you call it speculation, because you're ascribing a kind of lack of certainty around it, which for all we know, they have only said that it's going to happen. It's harder than it looks, is what I will say. And so
I
don't
like
have
the versions that are
particular
something
wish.
like Take-Two CEO says GTA 6 still on track for 2025. That I prefer, that kind of language, rather than confirmation, rather than GTA 6 is coming, like all of the definitive. But I'm a lawyer, right? This is what I do. I read closely. I look at language like that. So yes, it jumps out at me when certain outlets say, oh, company says this, but in every other context, every other editorial, every other opinion piece, every other news item knows that companies are human beings too and that they make mistakes. So yes, they think it's coming out, or they want to say that for some reason or another. I say it's the money train for investors, but you might have another reason. But we don't know because we haven't lived through 2025 yet.
It's true. However, right now it is coming out, and until we hear differently, that's the reporting.
Confirmed.
I mean, that is what they said. The company has confirmed it's coming out in 2025, and until they say anything else, that is the correct verbiage for it. Everything else is speculation, which you're not supposed to do in news articles. So it is coming out in 2025 until it isn't.
That's not super helpful, I don't think.
I don't think it is either, but unfortunately, that's how you have to talk about it if you're trying to report news, because you cannot be speculative. We are, of course, are all intuiting that it is not going to come out in 2025, but all the information we have is that it is from the official source.
That's why I like claims.
Yeah, claims is fine. But again, claims is also editorial. That is you ascribing your doubt.
It's not any more or less editorial than confirms. Confirms implies that that is the reality of what will happen.
Agreed. They are both equally editorialized. And so if you're going to say one, you should probably say the one that is from the perspective of the company that you're citing rather than from yourself, because then you're making yourself the main character in the news story.
I can accept that as a defense. I just don't think it's as useful as it can be to readers.
Again,
that's as close as you two are going to get.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it is not as easy as it looks. I think is my message to everyone here today.
My question:
try writing news headlines. It's actually kind of hard once you have a philosophy.
Well, especially when you start to understand SEO, it's a pain in the ass, is what it is.
It really is.
He's being nice.
Tough.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
My question is: are you two any more confident that this game comes out this year?
No,
I am definitely not confident that Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out this year.
I am actively very confident that it is not coming out this year, but I would not put that in a news article. I would put it in an editorial. Maybe.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I don't think it is either. It's fine.
It would surprise me a lot. And I think there was something else from the financial statements this week where maybe it was EA, maybe it was someone else that said we're going to hold on to our release dates for a little while until the ecosystem of 2025 reveals itself. It was something along those lines.
The monster in the room. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we understand. You don't want to release within a month of Grand Theft Auto 6. I get it. But, yeah.
Yep.
I doubt that is this fall.
Agreed. I think what's going to be more interesting to me, when you think about Grand Theft Auto, traditionally anyway, it hasn't released on PC at launch. Who knows if this one will? Doesn't seem like it will. But, which means you look at the console space, right? I think what's more interesting to me is twofold. Is one, if it doesn't release this year, do we get the rumored Xbox hardware in 2026, and what does that do for where you're going to play GTA? My other big question for GTA 6 is, will this release on the Switch too?
I think undoubtedly, the plan is to get it out on the Switch too.
I would agree, but that'll be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how the rest of the hardware environment is going to play with Grand Theft Auto 6. But I think when it does release, it's obviously going to be a major sea change in the entire video game ecosystem. So whoever is not supported by that game release is going to be in significant trouble, I would say.
I will say, Grand Theft Auto has a very good track record of releasing right at the tail end of a console generation and making fantastic use of the old hardware. And then they get to double dip when they
and then selling you another copy.
Port it on the next console and yada yada.
Sure.
So I see that in the tea leaves no matter what. I think that's what they're going to do. And I think people will be like, wow, I can't believe this game runs as well as it does on the current gen. And then they'll see next gen and be like, oh, okay.
Well, and that would be then like 2027.
I was about to call them wizards, and while they are, Rockstar is in the worlds they develop, but that's what also happens when you spend like endless amounts of money and resources to make a game. I mean,
that's a decade
endless.
For one game. I would not be comfortable betting the company on every single release like they do. It's not the way I would operate.
I would if I had GTA and Red Dead Redemption as my
because Red Dead Redemption 2, if you read, I've read a lot about that game because I love it so much. But overall, if you include contractors and people who worked on the game, the reported number is over 2,000 people that made Red Dead 2. And the money they spent is insane. But if you saw the other report this week where they're talking about sales, so Grand Theft Auto 5 has passed 210 million copies, which is a number that's just mind-boggling. And then Red Dead 2, even though it's the lesser in the general audience of the two, has sold 70 million copies.
I was going to say a mere 70 mil.
Yeah, which is bonkers.
A cool 70 million copies.
I mean, it's just nuts what those games do.
And I'll be honest, playing Kingdom Come Deliverance makes me more excited about Grand Theft Auto 6 if they could adopt some of these things that game does, right? Like, I think that Deliverance does such a better job of nesting those quests and making the world feel real with people that know each other and actually have impacts.
You're
on
saying
each
like
other's
all
storylines.
things that Grand Theft Auto would never put into their game, nested quests, real people who feel like they're connected. Like it's like not at all what GTA is about.
I would like to be more optimistic because I think Rockstar's model of quest design is leagues behind where we've seen these other games get to, and if they could adopt some of that in their framework, that would be great for Grand Theft Auto.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I can be hopeful. You keep telling me I'm the negative one. I can be optimistic about these things.
I don't know if that's optimistic, but yes, you said it.
To your earlier point, Travis, it is also mind-boggling, especially now reflecting on it, now that we're, 13 years removed or whatever, that Grand Theft Auto 5 is an Xbox 360 game. That doesn't even make any sense. It does not make sense.
I played it on the 360 at that time, and I was like,
I still have
holy crap, I can't believe this game runs that well. And then I bought it again on the next console generation.
Yep.
I think if this game comes out in 2026 and we get new consoles 2027, I think we'll see that again, yeah.
Because remember, it came out, it was a big deal when it came out on Xbox One and PS4. Then it went to PC, right? Or those might be reversed, but PC. And then it came out again with Series X and PS5.
Yeah, it went to PC a year later. Rockstar has very publicly explained that they will always put their games on PC a year later because their games are the most stolen games in PC history.
Well, when you do make your entire franchise about stealing stuff.
Fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
Grand Theft, DRM.
Yeah, that game was mind-boggling on 360. I couldn't, when I first played it, I was like, how is this even happening?
I think it'll be great. I don't think it'll come out this year.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I don't think so either. Agreed. But it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, boys. I think that's going to wrap us up for this Super Bowl Sunday episode.
You keep saying that. Just to be clear, Roger Goodell, we are not sponsored by the NFL. Don't come after our little program here.
Hey, you said go Lions every week until the Lions did what?
Lions
disappeared from the season.
All right, you stop being mean. The Lions
Be meaner, Ains.
The Lions are not a term that the NFL routinely sues people over outside the bounds of trademark law.
Okay, all right. You went and got legal on me.
Superb Owls.
Bitcast is an official sponsor of the NFL Super Bowl.
I am in Kansas City. It is required by law here. That's a fact, Hogue.
Yes.
So, it is what it is.
I would be rooting for the Eagles, which I never thought I would say. So
wow.
Honestly,
that's crazy.
Honestly, I normally don't even care who would win. Like, even in Kansas City, like if they lost, I wouldn't care. I despise the Eagles. Sorry, Matt and my friends in Philly. Despise them. So, yes, I'm hoping KC wins. We'll see.
Hate the Eagles. Hate the Chiefs. No stake in the game. What up?
I think that's honestly the majority of the country in the world for that matter.
I'm not a fan of the Eagles. I'm just a super not fan of the Chiefs.
Anyway, shouting out audience, you've been awesome as always. Please remember to hit that like button if you haven't already and help us out there. On the SG side of the house, as we said earlier, so my preview of South of Midnight will go live on Tuesday. That's 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern. And then our Avowed review will go live on Thursday. We are also doing some deeper articles on Monster Hunter Wilds that Elu's putting together. So he has a nice long kind of article about the series and the IP right now up on the site. He's also going to be doing a weapon overview and kind of guide on the game to get you into it. A lot of expertise on Monster Hunter in the SG crew. Yeah, because they're trying to get me into it. And I've said before, it hasn't been my thing. I'm going to really try. So they're putting a lot of content out to kind of embrace new players because this is going to be a gigantic release, no doubt. So
I think the last time I played, I was hitting people with bees. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if there's a bee weapon. I think I was hitting people with beehives. I don't know.
That's because they were on your witch list.
This is what I remember.
Gotta hit them with bees. You gotta hit those witches with bees.
Now,
you gotta do it.
Can I ask you, gentlemen, a question about Avowed, not in substance, but on release? When does the early stage release happen for this game?
Friday.
Yep. Friday, and then if you don't buy it Friday, it comes out Tuesday on Game Pass.
And then on Tuesday, you could play it for free, yeah.
Yes. Well, not for free.
Well, you've already paid them their money.
Yeah.
Then it's not free.
It's not additional cost.
You could play at no additional cost
than what you've already spent. True.
Well, I mean, you might have spent that for Indiana Jones. We don't know. We don't know you. Hi, friend. Thank you for watching our show. But we don't know you.
Play Indiana Jones, by the way.
Yeah. Play Indiana
Travis.
Jones, play Eternal Strands, play Citizen Sleeper 2, play Avowed.
Game Pass, Game Pass been killing.
Game Pass is popping off. The past 2 months
Yeah.
been incredibly good.
No doubt. Yeah. Travis, what you got?
Yes, I've got my review of Avowed on Thursday. I've got other stuff I can't talk about. This year is off, man. I'm doing previews. Got some JRPGs coming up. Got some turn-based tactic games I'm previewing. Can't talk about any of that stuff, but it's all coming soon to an IGN.com near you. You can watch.
I'm gonna have to ask you about your JRPGs. I know the dates that those games come out.
Oh, so. it's gonna be.
Oh,
good.
an IGN.com near me.
Yes.
Yeah. So my local IGN.com.
Okay. Local. Right. I mean, honestly,
wherever IGNs are found.
Yeah. So yeah, I've got a lot of stuff working on. Unfortunately, I can basically only just say that my review of Avowed will be live on Thursday, and then I've got other cool stuff that you can stay tuned for.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, you can get your fill of Travis puns at IGN.com.
Sure can.
Well, in my neck of the woods, I did a virtual legality this week about whether or not President Donald Trump using Microsoft as a potential buyer of TikTok is actually something that anybody should be worried about, concerned about, or thinking is going to happen. So there's a video on my channel about that. I did another episode on talking about the continuing saga of Hollywood extraordinaires, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds versus Justin Baldoni. And so if that at all interests you, I have another 2.5 hours on the channel from this week on that, and I will probably be continuing it this next week because we didn't even get through, I don't think, half of the almost 200-page lawsuit from the Baldoni side of things, and we are still one lawsuit behind because we're always one lawsuit behind because they just keep suing each other.
I don't pronounce. I don't know any of the names you just said.
Ryan Reynolds?
0. Oh, Ryan Reynolds. Okay, the Deadpool guy. I know
the Deadpool guy, yes.
Yeah.
Van Wilder owns a football club. That guy.
Didn't know that.
Someone was talking to me about this on my travel this week, this lawsuit, and gave me like the very high level. It was actually my Uber driver started talking to me. He was listening to a podcast about it. And
tell me your Uber driver was listening to Virtual Legality. Just tell me.
No. He was listening to, oh God, it's so good it's bad or something like that. I don't know. I just saw it on his screen. But anyway, he was telling me some of the details, and I was like, this sounds bonkers.
It is messed up, and everybody is suing each other. There are like 20 different parties. It's a very interesting story, both about defamation and First Amendment law and about the inner workings of Hollywood. So I think it's a really good story to be covering. I don't want to cover it for the rest of my life, so please stop suing each other. But I think there's a lot to talk about, and I think we've had fun doing it in Hangouts and Headlines because it was predominantly a headline story when the New York Times ran their story at the end of last year. So if you like that, check out the channel. Doing a lot of fun stuff on the channel of late. At least a couple videos per week. So come on over. We're having fun.
Nicole asks, and I don't know anything about this, just going on the comment. Nicole asks, any chance Hogue will be covering the lawsuit with Elon and X suing advertisers?
I have not seen anything about that. So if that happened this morning, I haven't seen it yet. If it happened earlier, I don't see everything. So I will check it out.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
Suing advertisers for not advertising, if I recall, was his reason.
That was original commentary about that.
That was months and months ago, right?
That was a while ago. Yeah, I don't know if
that was a very funny. I mean, I don't know what came of it. But
most of what he says is pretty stupid.
The current slate of possible virtual legalities are: I did want to talk more about the reporting on the EA statement with respect to Dragon Age, which I might still do. I probably want to talk about companies unincorporating or moving domicile out of Delaware based on Elon Musk and the Twitter lawsuits there. And I think that's probably it right now. I have my notepad somewhere about the possibilities, but leave a comment. Let me know what you think we should talk about in virtual legality or Hangouts and Headlines, because I can't be everywhere. Nicole, let me know what you're looking for, and I will see if it makes a good episode.
We want it all, Hogue. Stop making excuses.
We want it all. Well,
all right,
fortunately,
everyone.
my community's been awesome, and I have been able to tell them that I really can only do one of those long form streams per week. And I can do another virtual legality episode if I kind of plan it out around my day. But those streams, like this one, honestly, but definitely the ones that I'm on by myself, knock me out for the rest of the day. Like I get really, really tired. And it used to be for days, like last year. And so I'm getting better. I'm getting closer to where I want to be. But every time I make one of those videos, every time I do one of those streams, it is a task.
I like the idea that YouTube is a succubus that's just draining you of all of your life force. The longer you're like, oh.
It wouldn't be limited to YouTube. It's the same as drafting contracts or having board calls or anything else that I do. It's just that level of energy took a while to get stamina back.
That's good. Yeah.
Fortunately for all of you, Travis and I will continue to push him for your benefit.
So. That's right.
We want him to be constantly unconscious.
Sometimes I do put my head down on the desk after a video.
Anyway, you know what'll make you feel better, Hogue?
What?
Go back to 15th century Bohemia and have some fun, because that's what I'm going to do.
I was going to make a joke about how, Ains, you were really giving of yourself to not be playing Kingdom Come Deliverance during the making of this show.
This is true.
So, it is that much fun. It is right on my menu screen and say, yep, I'm going to go in. We're going to look for some new flowers. We're going to have ourselves a grand old time.
Hell yeah. That's what we're going to do. I suggest you do the same. If you're not playing KCD2, enjoy your games the rest of this week. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with us, and we will see you next Sunday. Until then.